Russian officials continue to mock the Biden team's weak diplomacy, with one Kremlin diplomat slamming the, quote, hype around the Griner case. It comes as Griner's coach says there's double standards at play, arguing that if it were LeBron James imprisoned overseas, he'd already be back home. Here with reaction, hosts of the Buck and Clay Show, Buck Sexton and Clay Travis. Thanks so much for joining us here. Hey, Clay, let's start with you. What do you make of this story?
Well, I think there's a double standard at play, and thanks for having us on. The double standard is if Donald Trump were president, he'd already have Brittney Griner back, and that is because you look at what happened with the UCLA basketball players who were arrested in China. Trump got personally involved. With ASAP Rocky in Sweden, Trump got personally involved. And we wouldn't have the war in Europe at all. I don't think that Russia would have invaded Ukraine if Trump were president. But if this had happened regardless, I think Trump would have gotten involved and he'd have gotten Brittney Griner back. And if Brittney Griner has regrets, and one would be traveling potentially with drugs in Russia, she may also regret, as she said in the letter, voting for Joe Biden because Donald Trump would have had her back more than Biden has. I feel quite confident in that.
Yeah, Buck, I think Donald Trump was able to bring home 55 prisoners. Ambassador Robert O'Brien, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo involved in those. And Trump brought home 55 detainees around the world. He knew how to get it done.
Well, we just have to add foreign policy and clout on the foreign stage to the areas of just utter failure of the Biden administration. Everyone should remember, Joe Biden was brought on to the Obama presidential ticket to be the foreign policy guy. And if you remember the 8 years, I know you do, Jason, of the Obama administration, it was a foreign policy disaster. Everything, everywhere, pretty much got worse. So there's nothing that's surprising about Joe Biden being incapable of negotiating a deal to get not just this American. By the way, I want every American home from Russia. I want Brittney Griner home. I want the other Americans, including Paul Whelan, home from Russia. But the Biden administration doesn't have what it takes to negotiate this deal. Obviously, doesn't have the kind of personal gravitas, I think, with Vladimir Putin that would help move the needle. And the Russians know this, which is why, by the way, there's now this rumor floating around that maybe the guy that the movie Lord of War, Victor Bout, remember Nicolas Cage played that arms dealer? That may be the trade that is offered here. So the guy who was known as the Merchant of Death may be traded for Brittney Griner. That was reported on by Forbes earlier today. So that would be quite a move. But from the Biden administration, would it be surprising? I don't think so.
Yeah, Clay, I mean, there's just this aura of incompetence that permeates throughout. I mean, you have staff that are just kind of diving for the exits. It's kind of sad to watch. You even have people that are active Democrats being quoted and talked about in Politico and other publications saying the guy's a fool.
Well, I think it's telling. Buck and I were talking about on the radio show earlier today. Barack Obama didn't endorse Joe Biden until he'd already wrapped up the nomination. And he also chose in 2016 to expressly pass by his vice president and instead support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. So it's not just an aura of incompetence. It is incompetence. Joe Biden's the worst American president so far in 100 years. And all those people who were upset about mean tweets, all those people who told us that they had to be on the right side of history, guess what? They voted for Joe Biden. They're definitively on the wrong side of history, whether it's foreign policy, whether it's the border, whether it's crime, whether it's inflation. Every single thing that Joe Biden touches turns to crap. The Midas touch is real, and it's the exact opposite of the Midas touch.
Yeah, you know, Buck, we knew this, right? I mean, when the guy has nearly 50 years of experience in Washington, D.C., he didn't just suddenly surprise people in the last 18 months. I mean, they knew what they were getting and what they were buying, and now they're having to live with it.
Oh, I mean, Clay said it well. You look at all the areas of failure, you actually never have the time to really work through them on any show, honestly, including our own. You find yourself just talking about not only the promises that were not kept. Joe Biden said he was going to unify the country. Last summer, he was talking about people who didn't want to get the mandatory vaccine like they were some kind of terrorist group. Joe Biden has failed consistently on everything that he has touched. But let's remember, even Democrats, until about 5 minutes ago, knew this guy was a sub-mediocrity and a loser. He had run numerous times for president before and was never even really taken seriously as a candidate. But in the pandemic year, when America was being told that, basically we were all going to die and it was all Trump's fault, we needed a grandfatherly figure. The media played this whole thing out, and now we have the exact candidate, the Trojan horse for the left and the incompetent buffoon that we warned America about. Clay did, I did, you did, and that's who we've got. And now the Democrats are realizing they can't sell that one in the midterms or for re-election.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.